The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.
Welcome back to another UAB Director's Chair. He is the AD sitting on my left here on our Tony Curry YouTube channel, should I say. And, of course, you can also check that out. UABsports.com is the website you want to go check out. And, of course, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, we're available everywhere. This is our most listened to show here on the TKR platform. You can hear it at least 5 times a week. I think I've covered our bases, my friend. How are you? What's going on?
Man, I'm excellent. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. We always talk a little classic rock. Guess who I'm interviewing today? I'm going to be on ABC 3340. You know, I have my own television show.
Yeah, you're famous, man. I know.
On ABC 3340. And it's from 10:30, 11 o'clock every Saturday morning. Guess who my guest is that's going to be on this Saturday morning that I'm interviewing as soon as I'm jetting out. As soon as I
Gene Simmons.
No. They're on the road with ZZ Top right now, I'll tell you that much.
Is it Jesse James Dupree?
It would be Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Yeah,
I'm interviewing Damon Johnson, Ricky Medlock, and the members of Lynyrd Skynyrd today. So you'll see that show. So I know how much you love classic rock. So I'm going to ask you, I'm telling you this early because I need some questions. You know, Damon does a show with me on Tony Curry Radio, and I've asked him about everything I could possibly ask him. And so as a fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd, I want you to be thinking throughout this short little podcast we're doing here, what kind of questions would you want to ask the lead guitarist of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Damon Johnson? And
what do we have to do to get some new music?
Okay. Well, that's
what do the fans have to do to get some new music from Skynyrd?
We can really talk about a guy too. I mean, we're talking about Brother Cane, right? That band is 30 years old. They had 5 top 10 hits. They had 3 number ones on the AOR list. They go off, and all of a sudden, the grunge thing kind of goes out the window. Classic rock music kind of falls off a little bit. No one's willing to play that newer stuff that's out in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so they kind of go on hiatus. So in the meantime, he's playing lead guitar for Alice Cooper. He's playing with John Waite. And then, you know, he decides, hey, listen, I need to go back and start this Brother Cane thing up again because everyone's bringing band back. Poison's back and Metallica's back and everything, right? So he comes back. And then a week after they're supposed to start hitting the road, Gary Rossington has this open heart thing. And Van Zandt calls and says, hey, Damon, we may need a lead guitarist to fill in on occasion. Would you mind coming on the road for us? I mean, can you imagine Lynyrd Skynyrd calling you and saying, and so he starts playing lead guitar. So occasionally Gary Rossington's not feeling up to a show. Maybe he gets sick during a show. He's losing his breath. And so Damon would just come out and occasionally he would play an entire show. And then of course, unfortunately, Gary, who was the last remaining member of the band, passes away, and it's Damon's job to have. And now he is the lead guitarist talk about a prized life, man. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
These great guitarists, you see a few that have kind of bounced around, like Steve Vai has been in a bunch of bands. Joe Satriani has been in a bunch of bands. Jeff Beck, a bunch of bands, because they're so good. I mean, they're almost so good that you can't get them because they're so good. That's just kind of an odd thing to say it like that, but they're just such incredible players. They're almost too good to lower themselves to be in one of these average bands.
I hear you. That's a great point. And I think that'd be a great question to throw at Damon today because I think he kind of is the Stevie Vai, the Joe Satriani, maybe the Beck of my time, certainly from our close proximity and the fact that he's a Birmingham guy, but a Nashville guy now. All right. So, we're in an interesting time. The Super Bowl is now over. And I know college football is not a seasonal thing anymore.
Yeah.
And basketball is full force. We can now take all of our brain measures and we can just point it towards college hoops and maybe professional hoops as well, because I love the NBA. My son loves the NBA. And you were talking before we got on the air about the cross-pollination between coaches at a university. And you started talking. It's one of those things where I wish I was rolling. I could have edited it, but I was like, hold on a second. I think that would be great for the podcast. But just talk about how important it is that the mainstay of every athletic department is the football and the basketball program, assuming they have both.
Yeah.
And how important it is for them to work together.
Yeah.
Because, we never, you are either a basketball school or a football school? Well, we know that's not true because Ohio State's done it. Florida's won national titles on both ends. You're seeing the Auburn Tigers right now. They bring Bruce Pearl in years ago, and all of a sudden, he's got this team going to Final Fours, and obviously Auburn has always been considered a football school. But can you just talk about how important it is that your coaches, and you use Trent Dilfer and Andy Kennedy as a prime example, two guys that have huge brands. Everyone knows who they are.
Yeah.
You would think it'd be pretty easy they get along.
Yeah, and they do. And it's like this. If you had, in our case, we have 18 sports. So if each sport had a bucket and that bucket was full of fans, the ability to sort of mix those together all the way across, not just football and basketball, but like if the softball coach who's got fans, maybe not as many, but if the softball coach starts promoting football, do some football fans from the football bucket go, I like that guy. And now they're coming to softball games.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Like you're trying to get all these people who have a clear affinity for our university or our brand or college sports, and they live close, to start attending more than just the one that they were initially drawn to. That creates value. It kind of helps all the boats rise, so to speak. And yeah, so in the case that you asked, our two biggest brands, football and men's basketball, I use that word cross-pollination. If you can get the basketball coach promoting football and the football coach promoting basketball, you start to get this crossover of fan where really instead of getting this many at one and that many at the other, you kind of get like this.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of both go up, and or maybe they're still here, but they go there.
Yeah.
It's just valuable, and so I also think it really humanizes them. It shows that there's this camaraderie and respect for what they're each doing. Hey, look, we're all working hard. We all have jobs. I don't care what your sport is, what you coach, what you're, whether you're a track athlete or a football player, those student athletes work equally hard.
Yeah.
You just don't know it because you maybe haven't been to a track meet, but those kids are out there on the track all day, every day, running and training and lifting in the off season and doing what they do to try to be great at what they do. They just don't draw as much fan interest. Same as a golfer. Does a golfer get knocked down all day at practice? No. Like the football player does? No. But they spend hours and hours and hours trying to perfect what they do. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to be good at. And so it just shows this mutual respect, amongst the coaches and what they all do.
That would be a great podcast. A Trent Dilfer, Andy Kennedy, a podcast. Just saying.
Yeah, just saying.
I mean, I'm just saying, just if those two would get together and do a podcast, and we could humanize them because they're both hilarious and they're both really good at what they do in their respective
We're
sports.
gonna have to get that done.
We probably should get that done. And I know the perfect host too. It's funny because Santo Cruz Curry, my 19-year-old son who's going to Clemson, he is taken on soccer. He is now going to watch men's golf. He has watched women's volleyball, and I'm like, and this kid loves college football and he loves college basketball. And I'll go, what are you doing tonight? He goes, I'm going to go watch the girls volleyball. And I'm like, and I got to bite my tongue because I'm his dad, and I'm proud of him. But I mean, I would have never thought in a million years my son would go watch women's college volleyball.
It's exciting.
And it's
exciting.
It's exciting. He needs something to do. It's not very expensive, and he's a Clemson Tiger fan.
Well, and he probably like most students at most schools, he's probably getting in for free, right? So it's free entertainment. And the volleyball rules changed about 20 years ago to do what they call rally scoring, and now nobody knows what that even is. But back in the day, you used to only be able to score in volleyball if you were serving.
Yes.
So if I serve, our team serves, and you guys win the point, well, you don't get a point.
Mm-hmm.
You would win the serve back, and then you serve, and if you won the point, you'd get a point. And so, but that made it for a long, slow, kind of exhausting game. But now it's, it doesn't matter who's serving.
Yeah, because you could go forever without anybody getting points.
Yeah, and you do in fact win the serve back, but you can score points even if the other team is serving. And anyway, so it's a faster game. It's an exciting game. It's athletic. It's fast paced. It's fun. fun to
No, it's
watch.
a lot of. How many would you say UAB Sports Athletic Director Mark Ingham joins us here for the UAB Directors Chair, one of our most listened to shows here on TKR, and of course you can check out UABsports.com, and we got some big things working with the university here at TKR, and I'm super excited about that. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But do you have? Obviously I'm assuming you have fans. I've been to both basketball and football, and I've actually been to a golf match. I've been to a volleyball match, but I'm assuming you do have some UAB fans that pretty much don't miss a thing, do they? They go to everything. Just are they
You know,
like the AD?
yeah, God bless them. We've got probably, I don't know what the number is. I want to, it's not 50, but it's more than 20.
Yeah.
Maybe it is 50. There's about 20 to 50 people somewhere in there that kind of don't miss anything.
Yeah.
And it's sort of hilarious. And sometimes, like we'll have a weekend series in baseball, and maybe I'm at the Friday game and the Sunday game, and I go to the Sunday game, and a few of them will be like, "Hey man, nice of you to show up." I'm like,
Yeah,
all right,
dude.
all right, you guys work.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, we got a few people that really don't miss anything, and thank God. God bless them. They are at just about everything we have, and we've got this. We've got an all sports pass here, a gold card that you can get for $65, and you can go to every single sporting event we have, other than football and men's basketball. So when you think about that,
Wow.
particularly families with young kids, retirees, that's a heck of a deal for a year-long entertainment. And again, it doesn't include football or men's basketball, but everything else. You think you get baseball and softball and women's basketball and volleyball and the soccers and all that to be able to go and watch a game. It's fun.
Yeah. It really is. We do have an email question here I want to get into, and then I want to get into why we have 31-year-olds playing college football. Ed in Southside was asking, what ownership value does UAB have of Protective Stadium? He knows that the state or the city has a big partnership in that, and he knows that UAB does as well. He was asking about having more events there. I know there's a motocross thing, I think, coming in February. I thought, how cool is that to have motocross?
Yeah.
Protective Stadium. I mean, I'd rather see it outside than see it at Legacy, which is very nice, by the way, too. But then, we had Garth Brooks play there. We had the World Games that had their closing ceremonies there and their opening ceremonies. But how much of a piece of that pie does UAB have? Do they have any control of what plays there? And if UAB wanted to do something down there, could you do it on your own?
Yeah, we can. We don't own it. Okay, so it's owned by the BJCC, the Birmingham Jefferson Convention Center. They own it. So they run it and manage it. They book the events and that kind of thing. So we don't have any ownership stake. I think that was the beginning of the question. We don't dictate, do they have concerts or motocross or whatever. As a Birmingham citizen, I hope they'll continue to have as much as possible. It's fun. It's
It's a great venue. It's a great
yeah,
spot.
you may love or hate Garth Brooks, and I may love or hate motocross, but between the two of us, we probably go to one of them. And
Sure.
and so the more of that is good for our community. It's good for our tax base. We in our lease we have scheduling priority for our football games, so the BJCC can keep scheduling things, but we have the priority, and the BJCC is good about that. They know that. They know to wait for our schedule to come out before they try to book things around it. And generally speaking, they don't try to do very much during football season, though the soccer team plays down there, and the sort of the end of their season is happening as during football season. So there'll be some, but it's not uncommon for us to play back-to-back weekends and there not be a soccer game in between. So it kind of varies year to year, but they can have as much as they want to have down there. And then they work with us on our spring game, which this year we're actually going to have at Legacy Pavilion. We're going to do the spring game on campus.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think it's going to create a really fun environment for our fans to get close to our players, to build a relationship sort of with our team, get to know them, stay and get autographs afterwards. I think it puts them physically closer to the action, which makes it more intimate, which I think will be a lot of fun to see and hear our coaches and see and hear our players and be around them. I think it'll be cool. And we're going to do some things, not just with recruits, but for families, inflatables and food trucks and this kind of thing to make it kind of feel more community,
Yep.
I think. So that's exciting. So that, everybody should watch for news coming at you for an April spring game event.
Awesome.
But all that to be said, we worked first with the BJCC to confirm that's the direction we wanted to go, which freed up a date, but they had been holding some dates, for us. So, respectfully, they were, trying to work with us. And at the same time, it is also their job to try to put as many events in there as they can.
What does Protective hold number wise?
42,879 seats. But it has a capacity greater than that.
That's quite a bit larger than I know a lot of people would try to compare the BJCC. It's not even close. And again, when you're talking about like a motocross, I've seen monster trucks down the BJCC, and I think someone's going to get killed because those things get revved up and there's no room to turn in there. And certainly a protective stadium would be another great place to do that. He is the UAB athletic director. This is called the UAB Director's Chair. We do it every single week. I'm very grateful to have his tutelage, of course, his mentorship and all of his answers. More than anything, we're going to ask him about Leonard Skinner coming up here in just a few seconds. Did see a very interesting article for the Texas Fort Worth rag. I call it the rag because that's what newspapers are these days, and I love that. Shortly before the start of the NCAA basketball tournament here in a couple weeks, TCU guard Charles O'Bannon will turn 25. He is the sixth oldest player in men's Division I basketball. TCU punter Jordy Sandy played the 2023 season at the age of 30. We also have a 31-year-old that played in college football. The best acknowledgement I can make, I can remember Chris Winkie. I think he was when he played national team. He was 23, 24, I think maybe a little older than that. And I was thinking, wow, that's kind of crazy because we know that the body and the mind develops a lot between the ages of 18 and 25. That's why if you ever want to rent a car, you got to be 25. They're not going to give it to you as an 18-year-old. You just get a lot smarter. Men get a lot smarter. We're dumb until we're 25. And their whole gist is what is going on with college sports and why is everyone getting so much older? Are they getting older? We saw something this past year where some guy had 7 years of eligibility. A lot of that played in the fact that we had COVID.
Right.
Certainly with the transfer portal that's allowing more players now to start playing around at the bat. But do they have a point here?
Yeah, I would say to that writer, they should probably do a little more homework before. If they're just kind of writing a fun thing, I didn't read it, but older guys playing is not new. You mentioned Chris Winkie. That's a great one. When I was at Tennessee, we had a guy named Kelly Washington. Mm-hmm. Both of those guys went and played pro baseball first. And there's always been a rule that allowed you to play pro something other, like if you played pro baseball, then you could go to college and still play college football because you weren't a professional in that sport. You could not go play pro baseball and then go play college baseball. So that was the rule. That's been the rule for years. Chris Winkie is popular because he was a quarterback and he won the Heisman Trophy. Mm-hmm. But there's been people doing that, going into the military first. Out of high school, go to the military. As long as you don't start college, your eligibility clock starts when you start college. So as long as they didn't take any college classes, then they could come out of 4 or 5 years of the military, then go to college on the GI Bill. And now here they are. They're 23 years old, 24 years old maybe, and they're a freshman.
Yeah, and that's what happened with Winkie too. And I totally forgot about this, but he played 6 years in minor league baseball,
right?
Before he actually started going to Miami as a quarterback. So
right. And then what hurt him in the NFL, frankly, is that as a rookie, he's like 30, mm-hmm. And so that sort of hurt his ability from a draft status perspective, how teams looked at him and what his long-term abilities were. Was he good or not? It was really like, okay, we're going to invest this in him. How many more years does the guy got? Yeah. And so that was at no fault of his own, a bit of a detriment, and whether they were right or wrong in their thinking, there's just so many variables that go into draft status. But you mentioned COVID. We've also always had a rule where you could get a year back because of injury. Medical hardship waiver is what it's called. On the back end of your eligibility, you ask the NCAA, you say, hey, look, Tony Curry was our whatever position, our running back, and he had already redshirted, but in the second game of the season, he tears his ACL and he loses an entire year. The guy only played one game, and and one quarter or something, would you consider giving him that year back that he missed? And the NCAA is very careful to not be abusive there, but also be reasonable. So, Football Oversight Committee and the folks that look at those waivers, grant that. So there's always been a possibility you could get a 6th year, right? Because you have 5 years to play for. You have a red shirt year and 4 years of eligibility. So that becomes a 6th year, if you get that one, and now layer in COVID. Anybody that was a student athlete during the pandemic got an extra year automatically, no questions asked. So the quarterback at San Antonio this past year was a 7th year senior. He had his normal 5 years, plus he had a hardship waiver, a medical hardship waiver because he was injured. And look, man, nobody's out there trying to get injured. It just,
sure.
So he got that 6th year, and then he got a 7th year because he got a COVID year. So yeah, we were playing against a 25-year-old out there this past year, and he operated like a 25-year-old. I mean, what I mean is, not only was he a great player, but like he wasn't rattled by the noise or the game or the moment at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he, in the middle of the game, we were up and he's just cool. I mean, just calmly walking from the sideline, coming out of a break, out to the huddle, not worried about the play clock. He's like, I got this, and it showed, and it that calmness, that composure, that maturity translated to performance, and it mattered. But
and assuming and again, we know that less than 1% are going to make it the next level. Let him play as long as he wants, man, because I mean, when it's over, right?
And there's a guy, Tony, and I hate this because I've met with this person. There's a guy who's out there trying to become the oldest player ever, and he's a long snapper.
I saw the story. Yeah,
he's like 50. I've met him.
He was in the service too, right? Wasn't he in the service?
Yes, he was in the military.
Yeah.
And I met with him right here in my office. One day he was in the Birmingham area, and can't remember why he was here. This has been at least a year ago. But yeah, he's trying to get on with the team and get into a game. And he taught himself how to long snap, like after his military career. And he's not great, but he's pretty decent.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Okay. I mean, he can get it done.
I'm 58. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, he's, but God bless him, and somebody will pick him up because he's not bad. There was another guy at like a division, like an FCS program, a guy, and he was a linebacker, and he was playing, and I bet he was like 40 something, playing after his military career. So it happens, doesn't happen a lot, but those stories are out there. It's fun.
No, it's killer. We got one more email here, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, kind of plays along with this. And I just found this here. Sylvia in Mountain Brook wants to know, with the transfer portal, she is aware that in the past, if you wanted to transfer, you'd have to ask your coach. They could either let you go or not let you go. And then if they were going to let you go, they could tell you where you were going to go or where you weren't going to go. And a lot of schools are like, you're not playing inside of our conference. How does that play out now with the new rules?
No, there aren't any. The old rule was you would go to your coach and you would ask for your release. If the coach said, I'm not giving you your release, you could still transfer. What it meant, though, was, first of all, when you transfer to another school, unless you transfer down a level, so from FBS to FCS, but if you went from FBS to FCS, you could play immediately. If you went FBS to FBS, UAB to Texas or Texas to UAB, you had to sit out a year. If you got your release, let's say you could leave Texas and come to UAB, and we could put you on a scholarship, but you couldn't play for a year. If you did not get your release, you could still transfer, but we could not pay you. You could not be on scholarship for the first year. So you had to be a walk-on for a year if you did not get your release. So that was the whole do you or do you not get your release. You could still leave. Yeah. It's free country. You can leave and go somewhere else. The other thing you mentioned was about dictating where you could go. It wasn't so much about saying where you could go as much as like we had the ability to say, we don't want you to transfer to another conference school or a school that we're going to have to play even in the non-conference while you're in college. So here's what our schedule looks like for the next 3 years. We don't want you to play it because we think you're good, Tony. We don't want you to leave. we don't want you to play against us.
Yeah.
You know, so you can go anywhere you want to go except for these places.
Mhm.
So we used to have that flexibility. Now we have none. The player does not have to even meet with us to tell us that they are in the portal or getting in the portal. They can just get in the portal. And the value in the old system was that it forced a conversation between the coach and the player that maybe had not been had. You know, the coach might have their the player might have their feelings hurt over, hey, Tony, you're a sophomore, and yes, we recruited another quarterback. We brought Mark in. Mark signed. He's in high school. I mean, we got to have a pipeline of players. In your mind, you might be thinking they love me more than they love you. When in actuality, they love you. We got to have backups, and you got to have. What if you get hurt? And then when you graduate, we got to have a guy after that that we've grown and matured and gotten ready. And so it forces a conversation that hadn't been had formally, and it gave a coach a chance to say, "Nah, man, Tony, you're doing great. We think big things are coming out of you. This is what we see." Or they might go, "Tony, we love you. You're a great guy. You work hard, and we get it. But I think if you want to get on the field next year, based on the guys that are ahead of you and the guys that were coming in, you might be better off to transfer."
Yeah.
And we're good, and no hard feelings, but he forced that conversation, which today some kids never have. They just emotionally, after practice one day, forget this place, I'm going poop, and they press a button and they're in the portal.
Pretty amazing stuff. He is Mark Ingram, the UAB athletic director. This is called the UAB Director's Chair. We love talking some classic rock, of course, AC/DC. We made the announcement last Wednesday because I actually called the band and called the label, so I knew that they were going to go on a worldwide tour last Wednesday. They told me not to break it, but I got to do what I got to do.
Too late.
So I broke it on Livewire last Wednesday that they were going to go on tour to celebrate their 50th anniversary. And they are. They're going to start in Europe, and I think they start in Stuttgart or something like that, Germany, on May 17th. And they'll be playing everything from Wembley to London to Austria to Australia. I mean, they're going all over the place. And they'll play through August, and they're going to make their way to the States. So that was big news. Something that's really not big news because they've been out there for a while is Leonard Skinner and ZZ Top. They decided to do this tour thing. And really, it's kind of like there really is no end to these tours anymore. They just start, and as long as people are buying tickets, they just keep playing. And the band could be on the road for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Which was what it feels like, not only for Kiss, but maybe Leonard Skinner as well. We're going to be interviewing the band on ABC 3340 on this TV show I do called The Starting Lineup, which will be on Saturday morning at 10:30. And I'm going to be interviewing the band. And I wanted you, while we were reminiscing and talking some college hoops and football, do you have any good questions? You already gave me one good question. That is the Stevie Vai question. The fact that Damon Johnson is the lead guitarist. And of course, he is a very humble individual. He will say that Gary Rossington was the greatest thing that ever happened. But I'll get it out of him. But the guy's played with John Wade. He's played with Leonard Skinner. He's played with Thin Lizzy. But what other questions would you like as a Leonard Skinner fan? What would you like me to ask him today?
Well, I mean, are any of those bands, he's not going to say that he's probably going to say he loves the band he's in more than any band he's ever been in. But, is there a particular band's music or a particular band that's been harder to work with or easier to work with?
Great question.
I think
I've got it written down. I was going to say, what's your favorite style? Because I think every band's got a different style. Yeah.
Or what about favorite, they always have had somebody that's opening for them. And what's your favorite opening act that you've traveled around with? I like hearing musicians talk about other music that they also like, so what's your favorite band that's out there, or what's your favorite modern music that's out there? Is there a band that you really like that's new? Who do you think, other than yourself, who's the best band, or who puts on the best concert other than you guys? Who puts on the best concert that you've seen?
He said, and he's done just a multitude of shows here on TKR, and you can hear him 5 days a week. We replay them because they're so stinking good. He does a thematic thing. Well, he'll do his top 6 guitar solos or top 6 Leonard Skinner songs or whatever. And he tells a story about they came back to Birmingham when he was with Brother Kane, and they were the opening act for Van Halen. in the early 90s. And he just talks about hanging out with Eddie Van Halen. And of course, when we had him on our show shortly after Eddie left this earth a couple of years ago, but it was just, man, to hear that story and him and Ed drinking beers before the game, it's like, wow, it's just stinking amazing, man. It really is.
Yeah.
So great. All right. I got some questions. That's great, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And we will catch up next week and see what's going on. Real quick, basketball, women's basketball, men's basketball is hot and heavy right now. What's going on?
Yeah, we got women's basketball on Saturday. It's a blackout, 1:00. And then men's basketball Sunday at 2:00.
That blackout worked out pretty good for UAB's basketball program.
Yeah, they're doing well. They're both doing well. Look, the league has been everything we thought it would be. The American is just hard and harder. And, we brought a lot of really good basketball brands out of Conference USA, like Florida Atlantic, for example. Ourselves, Charlotte, we're doing really well on our own. But then we join, Memphis, and South Florida's having a great year. SMU's having a really good year. So we're joining other really tough teams, which we knew. Again, that's what we wanted, was tougher competition. But that sometimes that parity means at some point you can't win them all. But we've done really well. Both men and women are doing really well right now, with about roughly 6 games left in the regular season before we get into tournament play. So we want fans to come out on both Saturday and Sunday if they can. 1:00 Saturday, 2:00 Sunday, and be here for the Blazers.
Have you found that the AAC fan base travels a little bit better than Conference USA too? Because I'm sitting there at that 8:00 game. It's a late game against FAU, and I'm thinking, I saw Mr. Hardikoff there, and he's like, "How about this, man? 8:00 game. Look at this crowd. It was great. It was almost as good as the Memphis game. It was really, really great.
Yeah, I don't know
if it's into it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's about our opponents traveling as much as I think our own fans and the general Birmingham community recognizes the quality of the teams we're playing, and we are playing well. So they want to see a good game. It's an opportunity to see a really good quality game and have come out. Now, at the same time, we played, our women's basketball team played Temple last night and in a tough game. But there were 25 Temple fans, and most of those kids, I was looking at their roster, are from the Northeast, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, most, not all. And so their families, presumably up in that area, and came down to watch them play. And which is great. Now, we've always had some of that, but I was surprised to see from that kind of distance, people come down for that game.
That's pretty cool. Mark, thank you so much. We'll catch up next week.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.